And a happy Wednesday morning to you. Welcome to the EST Hangout presented by Mott's Clamato Caesar. Available in both original and variety 12 packs. My favorite is always going to be the pickled bean, although spicy, extra spicy is right up there. Tom Gazzola with us is always looking sharp as always as well.
Oh, thank you. I pay you to say these things.
Joining us as well, returning to the Hangout, it is Steve Sandor from Edify magazine and Lali Toor from Apna Hockey. Did I get that all correct?
That is correct.
Perfect. You're joining us, making your debut here on the EST Hangout. So, gents, thanks for braving the cold weather to come on in.
That shirt, Steve. Thank you. Wonderful.
The Lloyd Mosby.
Yeah.
Lloyd Mosby Topps car.
So last
Powder
time you were
blues.
on, you had that Pirates hat.
Yeah.
That was awesome, too.
And now you have this great shirt.
What else do you have in your tickle trunk?
Oh, you know what's terrible? Like, a lot of stuff doesn't come out. Some of the stuff has now been passed down to my son.
Okay.
But like the obscure soccer jerseys, if I ever wanted to rock like clubs from like second division Eastern Europe that you would be like, who are they? And it's like, I have random hockey jerseys. I think I have a game worn Jokerit somewhere.
That's cool.
Like,
Yoni Niemanen is just dancing with joy right now.
I think maybe Yoni has seen it. And it was like, but I don't bring him out anymore so much. It's like this collection of like stuff, and baseball caps I'm pretty like obsessed over.
Yeah.
So like, and like I have rules for baseball caps. Like obviously if you like wear a red Yankees cap, like there's a special place in hell reserved for you. Like, like team colors are team colors.
Yes.
Like those, and they're important. Like those stylish things like, oh, I've got a khaki Blue Jays hat. Well, that's not a Blue Jays cap. I'm sorry. It's
Wow.
It's not cool.
Yeah.
It's not cool. Like you wear the team colors.
Yeah.
And like I kind of have a rule, it's gotta be a cap that it's a team actually wore in either a game or whatever, not like some gimmicky thing.
Wow.
And like I don't wear like caps of other sports.
I like that.
So
Like a
Steven,
baseball
you
cap's
have
a baseball cap.
Steven, you got a way better wardrobe than me. All I wear is
No.
black, right? Every
trust
time I
me.
got
It
the
looks so good though.
So I got
time.
all my
It's
gym
easy.
buddies
Yeah.
are always making
Yeah.
fun of me. They're like, "Lali, you're wearing black shorts," and usually a Apna Hockey T-shirt, which I got like 50 of
Yeah,
them.
but you have to
He's a
understand.
Every
walking
day.
billboard.
I'm
Yeah.
going for a tuxedo fitting after this because I have to get something for the
Yeah.
chamber ball. So it's like they see like we're guys, so we kind of go, oh, high fashion. Oh, what sports shirts do you have?
No.
And then I go to my Edify life and I have to talk
Yeah.
about like, and I'm talking about, oh, like this nice suit jacket and this tie. And like,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, high fashion. And yeah, it's kind of like living this double life. Because I know deep down inside, just guys want to know what sports jerseys you have in your
I'm just
closet.
going to quickly set the camera because you're a little off.
That's okay. Nobody wants to see me today.
Everyone
Yeah.
wants to see you, Tommy.
Nobody wants to see me. So tux fitting. What's going on? Oh, yeah, the ball.
Chamber ball. In end of January.
Yeah.
That was a blast last year. I rocked a white tux. I decided I was going to do.
That's sick.
I
Do you
was
buy
gonna-
or rent? You must.
But rent. I
Yeah,
rented
okay.
that one. It was a white tux. I was like fat James Bond. That's what I always wanted
I
to
like
be. I
that.
said to my wife that I was like, if James Bond quit 20 years after the Secret Service,
Yeah.
like he's gained a lot of weight, put on some pounds, still shows up at the ball
It looks
with like
good.
the white tux. And
Pulls out.
she knew it. She was like, oh my, she said, I know you, because she trusted me to go and do this by myself.
Yeah.
And she's like, you went and got a white tux, didn't you? And I'm like, yep.
I'm an
She's like,
angel, baby.
and I'm just like, no, yeah. And she's just like, why? Why did I know this? Why did I know you would do this? And
Yeah.
it was like, it kind of worked. It worked
It
out
worked
okay,
out.
but
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
year will be something different. I haven't decided yet
Yeah.
what it'll be.
I
And I'm
bought a
still
tux.
rocking the Gretzky hockey camp hat I got a couple of years ago with you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
There it
That's
is.
a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. It looks like Team Canada from far away.
Yeah, he does that on purpose. Ty does that on
Yeah.
purpose. He designs it all
No,
himself.
I love it.
Yeah,
You
And
came
he-
back with some nice stuff from this Gretzky stuff.
I did.
Yeah.
I
We
had,
missed him here in Edmonton, though.
well, that's for Ty and the city of St. Albert to figure out.
Yeah. Would love to have him back.
Yeah, I bet. Calgary, we had a great camp down there.
What was the best one? That, Coeur d'Alene, or
Phoenix?
Phoenix?
Was really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
We were in Scottsdale the whole time.
The trip looked fun.
Yeah, I'm probably going back.
I wouldn't say probably.
I'm going back.
Yeah, that's the way we're going to have to
Yeah,
look at that one.
Yeah.
Should we look quickly at the Oiler game last night? And
You
where-
guys
where-
go first. I talked about it so much.
Do we want to talk about the win and the Oilers play or the offside? Where do you guys want to begin with this one? Does the NHL need to do something with offside reviews or how it reviews offside?
So what Connor said was actually pretty funny. I laughed at that for quite a bit. How he said just keep zooming it in until it gets pixelated basically, and you can't even tell the difference. But I mean, it's just, I think the biggest problem is obviously the stop of play, right? 15 minutes, come on, like you're going to drain a lot of energy, a lot of momentum, right? I think that's one of the biggest problems with it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I used to have a very different opinion on this. And obviously with VAR in soccer too, where they draw the lines and you're seeing if a guy is a millimeter offside or not. And, there's been a lot said about what's happened with VAR and how long those delays are. And in hockey, I used to be the sort of person, if you see it with your eyes and you're like, you can't really tell, is that clear and obvious? And yeah, we shouldn't have the replays, but Dave Gantar, the Canadian soccer referee, he used to ref in MLS, international games, and I was having coffee with him as he was retiring. And he said something to me but the rule book says, there's nothing in the rule book that says it's 3 millimeters off or 5 feet off. It says if you're behind a defender, you're offside. Or if you're behind that second man, you're offside.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, so in that case, VAR is absolutely correct. Like, there's nothing in the rule book. If you want to change VAR, change the rule book.
Yeah.
You have to change the rule book first that says visually, or something that says that it in the rule book has to say clear and obvious, but it doesn't. We say in the VAR interpretation that it needs to be clear and obvious, but clear and obvious means different things to different people. Mm-hmm. What might be clear and obvious to you and me is not clear and obvious to someone else. Do I like the delay? No. Do I like, I feel like over the last year and a half, I've learned more about the offside rule and things that you think you know with sport inside out. And like after the Colorado series from a couple of years ago, and the offside call about possession, and you're like, well, I didn't know that.
That was hot garb. I still feel like that was hot garbage.
I'm opposite. I think they got that absolutely right. Based on the rule book, based on the letter of the rule, how it's written, they got it right.
It's just like, and you can go all the way back when you're reviewing things, and you can go back to Brett Hull in the crease in Buffalo in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
Was he in the crease? Did he come after the puck? Was that by letter of the law a legal goal? Because when the NHL explained it, it was like, well, did he leave the crease, come back in after a loose puck? The thing is that the rule book would need to change.
They need to limit the interpretations.
Or you put something in the rule book that says, hey, a review can only last
3 minutes.
Two to 3 minutes. Yeah. And if you can't tell by then, you can't tell.
Yeah.
I mean, you could look at whatever angle of the Draisaitl thing yesterday, and I said you could slow it down. Was it a millimeter or whatever off? But again, it needs to be in the rule book. And I think putting this, because the pressure, especially, and it's, I looked at something, it was a university study, and this was for something else that I was writing, but it was a university study done, Simon Fraser University, and I believe it was, what was the other university was involved? Maybe it was University of Montreal, but they looked at as part of a larger thing, calls in the NHL and how games are called over a period of time. And 65% of calls go the home team's way, no matter what. It's just a way. It's about 60-65. So you're going to lean towards Chicago getting the call. It's just human nature. If that game was in Edmonton, maybe that goes the other way. So there is like a lot of interesting psychology at play that you think about these things. In the end, if we're obsessed about that call in a game against an AHL team, we got a problem. Like the fact that we are, and maybe, and I'll give this to you, actually after the second game, and I said this to my son last night, they beat Calgary with this AHL team, and they outplayed Edmonton last night. They badly outplayed Edmonton.
They worked hard.
Edmonton had 15 shots on goal. Maybe that says something about the selection process in October, about the guys who made this team and the guys who didn't make this team, because they're embarrassing those 8 guys, except for Bedard, who are on the DL right now. That's what the Blackhawks are doing. And maybe we need to talk about that, is that sometimes the wrong guys make teams. It just happens with contracts and whatever. But that Chicago team was way better than the Chicago team I saw earlier this year. Yeah. Their defense is better. They're more disciplined. And I would actually tell some of those guys, you might be sitting when you get back, because these guys are better than you.
Yeah, I agree.
The Blackhawks just announced also Connor Bedard will miss 6 to 8 weeks after undergoing surgery on a fractured jaw. He was set to be the youngest player to dress at the NHL All-Star game. He will miss the All-Star game. We could get into the game and the Blackhawks and all that just quickly on the review. Like, to me, and like all the refs said it, the Cale Makar play, they got it right based on the letter of the law that was written. I said this at the time back at 1260, though. At that moment, I said that offseason, the NHL needs to go change this rule book. They need to make it more clear and concise so that there isn't this confusion, because it is going to keep creeping up then, where people are going to point back to this Cale Makar play and be like, well, why did it go this way this time but not this way that time? And they needed to make it a lot more, almost simple and more black and white. And the fact that the NHL didn't do that at the time is why we're having these issues with the offside still. And
Bruce McCurdy said it best. He said, what, are we going to say Connor McDavid had 1,000 micro touches on his last possession? And then he lets the puck off as he's stick handling, and all of a sudden he doesn't have possession. That's my issue with yesterday. Leon Draisaitl was offside. Okay, like I know Louis was talking about the skate coming back, and maybe the toe caught the plane of the blue line while he was bringing the puck in. No, he was offside by that view and definition. But what is possession? Because I believe that he had possession. And if he has possession, he's bringing the puck in like that, and his body's past the blue line, but the puck's still coming through. If he's got possession, that's not offside. That's my issue. What is possession? They haven't defined that.
I think the fact, and I'll say this, what will hurt that cause with VR, and you do, as when you're sitting in that video room, you look at intent, and the fact that he turned his skate to kind of go, right? Like he kind of went,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Like, and the fact that he turned his skate back towards the blue line to kind of say, makes him look guilty, makes him look like, I know I'm off.
Yeah.
Right? And that's is what you're going to look at. It's like that thing, like you tell kids, don't put up your hands if you think you committed a foul, right? Like it's like you
Don't do that.
Don't look guilty.
There's been multiple times when
the times I've told young baseball players, never look back at the umpire after a close pitch. Never look like, did I just take a strike?
Yeah.
Just look forward. Don't give that umpire that sense of that there's doubt in your mind.
Yeah.
That pitch was on the corner and you're not quite sure. Like, make it look like, it's a ball. That's a ball. I know it was. And just let's go forward. But human beings have this thing where they know deep down inside, like, was I on or off? Is that a foul or not? And they do this thing where they look at the referee or they look guilty.
Yep.
And Leon Draisaitl looked guilty.
Well, he was
in that
past the
fraction
line.
of a second. He turned his skate. The worst thing he did was turn his skate back. If he would have just not done it, it would have looked a lot less like this is a guy that's sort of telling the referees and telling those replay officials, I think I'm offside.
Yeah, and I've been pretty guilty of taking those long lunges around the blue line, throughout my playing career. But like, I'm going to put a different perspective on it. This is more in-game talk about, the game itself. What about the delay itself and how new fans going to that arena are viewing hockey now, right?
That's a great point.
Right? So, I mean, like,
really
when new fans are coming to the rink and they see a 50-minute delay, they don't even know what's going on, right? How does that affect hockey, moving forward? Right? I mean, these are different perspectives. I mean, I come from a growing the game type perspective, right? So, I mean, my lens is very different when it comes to hockey itself. Sometimes it's not really the play on the ice or the score. It's actually the people in the stands that matter sometimes more, because without the people in the stands, there's no product on the ice, right? So, I mean, how is the NHL balancing that? Right? Something to think of.
I think it's a really good point. And it is, it takes the air out of the arena, right?
Yeah.
It takes the air out of the game. I mean, the cynic will say, hey, you can sell more pop, you can sell more beer, you can sell more popcorn if the game takes longer. I mean, sports over decades has done things to actually artificially make its games longer to keep people in the arena longer. But now we kind of want to shorten games. We want to make games quicker.
Yeah.
But at the same time, all these leagues look at a league that sits apart from everything else because it doesn't follow any rule, which is the NFL, which grows and grows and grows. And the NFL loves their delays. They love the replays. You love the coach throwing the flag on a 2nd and 1 where he says, we got that extra 6 inches and remeasure, and they look at it and you're like, it's 2nd and 1, you have 2 more downs. Why can't you just play the game? And deep down inside you think that, but they are so into micromanaging and about
Strategy.
a very thick rule book.
Yeah.
And about a very, in my opinion, as much as I love the NFL, like rules, I kind of wonder, why does this exist? Like, why does this rule exist?
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense. Like, but they look at other sports, look at the NFL and say, no one seems to mind that an NFL game is almost 4 hours now. And they still throw TV numbers up that are massive.
Crazy.
And everyone there seems to love the micro analysis of if that guy's foot is in bounds or not, or if they got that extra half yard, or was the knee fully down. And it's now translating to other sports because other sports are saying, hey, they do it and there's no impact, we'll do it. Except I think other sports are different. They all follow different rules because the NFL is its own animal.
The
And
Shield
other
is by
sports are-
itself.
Yeah.
It is. It's such a powerful
and it
brand.
can't be compared
and
to
leagues
anything
can't
else.
match up with it.
Right.
Like we've seen baseball though go like we need to shorten our games because
Right.
people aren't watching this. With soccer, there's talk of going to 60-minute matches. And
Right.
changing how that goes
And
to.
stopping the clock, but they want to put commercials in the game, and that is the big. They'll talk about it being
Yeah.
about the flow, but the reason is soccer has a problem with commercial television, which
Just
is
there's no
as
pauses.
popular as it is globally. There's nowhere to sell ads except in on the jerseys or in the top corner of the screen, which isn't worth as much as a 30-second beer ad. And if you can get that into the game, and by going to stop time, they could do that. I think it'll eventually come before I die, but I agree
America-
with you though. I think
yeah.
it's hard when you have and it's hard to even explain to them saying, okay, they're checking for what is probably going to be a call of a couple of millimeters or of half an inch.
But
Well, I think that's the issue that I would also go with what you brought up there. Is that if they're sitting if you brought a new fan to the game and they're saying, what's the delay for? And you go, well, it's offside. And we're like, well, is it offside or not? And a regular fan's going, I don't know.
you don't even know.
I can't
right?
explain this to you. I don't know what they're
I
talking
will
about. I
honestly
don't know
say-
what they're looking at. I am confused too.
Yeah.
Like, how do you sell the game?
Exactly.
Based
So
on-
with
but-
NFL, there's so much strategy involved with the NFL, whereas like each play is like, you're thinking about, okay, what could be the next play?
But-
okay, it's a game of inches,
based-
right? The NBA, look at the NBA with their in-season tournament, right? They had low numbers on weekday games, so they turned that into a whole different thing.
People
right?
loved it.
Adaption is a big thing, and I think the NHL kind of lags on adapting to changes, right? And I mean, when it comes down to, especially the National Hockey League, like the delay itself, like how you said, Maddie, like people don't know what's going on. Yeah. It's like those. I hear it in Rogers Place all the time. Sometimes you can hear like a penny drop in the rink, right? It turns into that.
Yeah.
Right. I was telling Steve right before the podcast, I was like, there's a really famous artist. His name is Inquisitive from our community. I brought him to his first Oilers game in October. Obviously, he's a huge football fan. I think he's an Arsenal fan. He came and he's so pumped, right? And then during the game, when there's scrums, he was pumped. And then he turned to me. He's like, why is it so quiet in here? Because there's no chance. There's nothing. And I'm like, you make a good point as a new fan. Right?
Oh, the atmosphere isn't there in hockey, and it's weird because Canada, it's full of people from Europe and from all over the world, and they all come from that culture, and that hasn't bled into the hockey culture.
I think we talked about this last time I was on about how North American sports culture is exceptionally different than the rest of the world. It sits out, just like the NFL sits out as an outlier. North American sports fans go into stadiums. They want comfort. They want good food. They like the luxury box. Whereas like Europe, some stadiums had to close their luxury boxes because no one wanted to sit in them. No one actually wanted them because they're like, why would I want to be sit apart from the rest of the fans? Like, and then
where the excitement is.
like, and okay, this is a great example. Is last year I was watching a game from a Wolves game, so Wolverhampton, rainy night, miserable night, and like here we'll see Taylor Swift. And she's in the private box. Or you see LeBron let's say he's at a baseball Dodgers game and he's in the private box. And they had this video of this guy with the long hair and he's just with this like Wolves thing and he's just looking miserable and they close in on him. He's like in the seats, he's soaking wet with his like long hair and it's like, and they look closer and they're like, is that Robert Plant? And they're like, yes, it is Robert Plant. Like, here's the lead singer of the most legendary bands ever, who would easily just say, hey,
the
I'm
Bee
Robert
Gees.
Plant. I will walk into
a box.
And
And isolate
He's
myself.
sitting in the rain, like, with the rest of the fans, like, just like that normal guy, because the experience there is different. Fans see themselves as part of the game. They understand that they can influence the game.
of the
They can
team.
influence referees.
Legit part of the
That's
team.
why they don't use the word fans. They use the word supporters. It has an entirely different kind of context, right? Because you have a role. You understand that when you go there, you have a bearing on the game. It's not about if like you feel that the seats are comfortable enough, if the food is good enough. But here, we're fans and / customers.
Yeah.
And we look at it's transactional, our relationship with teams when we go to games. It's transactional, where there it is deeper. It is something that ties, but there's a lot to it because teams there they're not just sports teams per se. They have social real presences. And I'm not talking social presence that they do hospital visits and things like that. They support political causes. They will be overtly about certain religious causes or what have you. They will be open about this stuff that you identify. If there is how many teams in London, which one do you pick? Right? Like if we had 12 NHL teams in Edmonton, which one would you pick? Like the first thing that a European would wonder why is if the NHL is so big, why a city like Edmonton only has one team and not 8?
Where the GTA only has one team.
Yeah,
That is
like,
crazy.
It'd be like, why don't they have not like 2? Why don't you
Multiple.
have 8? Like a city this size in Europe would have a number of pro teams, and it would go by either by neighborhood or it would go by like religious, political lines, what have you. And that's why you have this very different relationship. So sports in North America is transactional.
Very transactional. I agree with that point, Stephen. Like even like with Liverpool FC, what's their motto? You'll never walk alone.
Yeah.
Right? Like it just makes you feel like again you're
part of
the-
something.
Part of something. Right?
Arsenal's motto
Yeah.
is "We collapse at Christmas" every year. Whoa! Every year, like trust me, as my frustrations boil to over
Got a
like,
new kid, I saw.
another different.
I just want to say this. I love luxury suites, boxes, and creature comforts at sporting events.
It's funny though because
That's my favorite.
I just read an article last week about the Rose Bowl game.
Yeah.
Where that's a game that happens every year. Where now, like I know Stephen A. ripped the game being played at the Rose Bowl. There's no luxury suites really at the Rose Bowl, and everyone that goes to the Rose Bowl game on Jan 1 is there for football. It's not like
I
and
respect that.
they have some nice amenities. They have a nice concourse. I was there once. It is awesome, but everyone that goes and sits in those games, it's not about the luxury. It's not about comfortable. It's there because you're there to watch a football game.
Yep.
And it's a spot in North America that's very unique now in that sense
College
because
sports is different.
It's one but especially like that one because some of the other colleges they have their luxury suites and they're trying to make it still really nice. But the Rose Bowl itself is back to old school where it's why are you going to the Rose Bowl? Not to sit back and relax. You're there because you're watching a football game and you want to be part of that football game in a sense. And it is closer to supporters. So, I wish the Oilers.
I'm going to jump on that comment. So, like, I was in Rome in June, and I went to an AS Roma game.
Oh, nice.
And what I realized was each section only had their own entrance, and I couldn't even find a place to buy a jersey.
No?
That's how crazy it was. There was one concession behind the section to grab food and beer, but like there was no place to grab a hat, no place to grab even like a jersey, nothing. And it's like literally no box suites too. It was probably the craziest atmosphere I've been a part of, and it was just a meaningless game.
Probably because you have your hat, I'm assuming, or whatever it is
also,
prior.
you're not
I'm guessing
allowed
you're going to that game and you already have it. You don't
ready
need
to go.
it.
You don't need
you're
it, right?
already
Like, I
ready.
mean, look at the way they're thinking out there, right?
And
Like,
remember the sections there are marshaled because like they're
Nuts.
the road team has to sit in a certain section. So if you're fans of, you don't mix.
No, you don't
Right,
mix.
you're not allowed to mix. So they have to police that to make sure you don't like walk around the stadium and like hit the road team's fans.
Yeah.
Where there's going to be problems, right? Where in that obviously depending on who you play, if it's a fiercer rival, you have to keep the fans separate. And like you see that, like you'll actually see a cordon of security
Eric
or
and
police
I
officers.
will get
that will do that.
get ready for like a Champions League match.
Yeah.
It'd be like on the Tuesday or Wednesday. Like I can't wait for this one match because these fans are crazy and they're going to this other place that's crazy. And
Yeah.
you're just paying attention to like what's going to happen in the streets.
They're crazy. So like when I got to the stadium, I'm like, why are there hockey boards for one section? That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, why are there hockey boards? I go up to the boards, like they're hockey boards. I'm like, I used to like, body check kids into this stuff, right? And one of the fans was like, that's where the opposition actually sits.
Yeah.
Because they're boarded off. It's that bad. And like they were throwing beers at one another. Like it was nuts.
There's a middle ground that you want in North America.
European-
you want
classy,
people to come
classy.
here and have that excitement, but let's not get to the point where there's riots and the Oilers and the Flames are meeting and there's these massive fights in the streets at 104
honestly,
beforehand.
This is a struggle that MLS has in North America, right? Where MLS tried to create this supporters culture mentality, and now they're pulling back, right? Like LAFC supporters group has been told next year there's certain things they can't do because they're pushing that line. And MLS knows that at some point the supporters drive away those luxury box wannabe fans
dollar
who don't
bills.
want to be there because they feel a bit threatened when people are lighting smoke bombs and holding giant banners with skulls and like messages like "you will die" on in their section. So supporters culture, they wanted it. They wanted to create this kind of faux European / South American experience, and then it became like, they notice there's an impact, and they're noticing. And it was a problem even FC Edmonton when they were around. And I heard about this from the organization. The supporters group, though small, was vocal, and it felt gatekeepery. For the average fan to go to their first soccer game, they felt like there was this code that they had to know because the scarf-wielding fans with the blue smoke in the one corner made it seem like you had to like be super well-versed. It didn't feel... It doesn't always feel super welcoming. Soccer's issue's always been the gatekeeperiness of it.
In this country, big time.
It's big-time gatekeepery, like, oh, do you know enough, or do you care enough, or you're wearing the wrong shirt. Like, the amount of people that...
Do you want me to show up to support your damn team or not?
But that's the thing. Like in this country where it's newer and you're like trying to get people on board,
right?
You can't be in a situation where it's like, if you don't know follow this way, what are you doing here? Type. Golf has this issue. Like you want to make it accessible, and there are going to be those courses where it's like, don't come golf here if you don't know how to golf, right? Like there are rules, but there's those other courses. There's those other courses where you go play there, and it's you let someone learn how to play golf there, and you don't get mad at them. And soccer, very much in this country, especially, it's just like
all the leagues have issues. Like, and I mean, Lali, we will talk. Maybe I'm changing the topic, but like hockey's issues. The players are boring. Players are so boring. The players are so boring.
Like there's no personality.
There's no like 95% of them are like, honestly, Tom. When we go in the dressing room, we could write the quotes before we got there.
100%.
100%. We could, and the players wouldn't even argue. Did I say that? Did I say that it was like I would just love the player after a hat trick to go, you know what? That was all me.
I was
damn good tonight. I was really good tonight. Me? And you know what? I've hated that goalie for like ever. And there was nothing I enjoyed more than sticking it past him. And that was just, and I'm not saying you have to be cocky, because I know hockey, part of the salesmanship is the humility of the players.
Good old Canadian kid from the prairies.
The issue, like for hockey, and this is why, like when you ask in the United States, why Connor McDavid doesn't even touch the 50 most known athletes in North America, because he doesn't. He's famous here, but there isn't a hockey player in the top 100. There are players in Europe playing soccer who are more recognized in America than Connor McDavid
Absolutely.
is. And it's all about hockey as a whole. And this is maybe me pushing into the book that I'm working on, where the NHL is trying to push teams and saying to teams, your players have to be more open, talk about stuff, be themselves. But there's such a pushback amongst the hockey, amongst the code, the room, and what have you. And you have, and if I can frankly say, for the majority, a bunch of white guys who all kind of come off sounding the same and don't really
instill the culture that it needs to be, or change the culture.
There's not like
a welcoming, even just opening up the door.
Welcoming, let the players be who they want to be. Like when I grew up, I idolized Ovechkin. The reason why I idolized Ovechkin was because when I saw him at the World Jays with that tinted visor, with the yellow laces on his skates, yellow laces around his hockey pants, that guy had style. And
all
it's wild,
yellow laces, yellow skates, and a tinted visor. That's all he did.
Stood out.
And it stood out.
That says something, because that's not a lot.
And he was also a wicked player, obviously.
No. But for that to be the standout is your point. Like,
is my point, right? So I think that I saw a stat a while ago. It was like, well, who is the most recognizable NHL player on earth?
Like currently or all time?
All time. I think it was Ovi or Yager worldwide. Because they're European and they're well versed. It was not a Canadian. And it wasn't Gretz.
Jágr
Gretz was
started-
up there, but it wasn't Gretz either.
Jágr started playing in the NHL when I was in kindergarten, and he's still going. I know it's supposed to be
Yes,
his
it's
last
like-
year.
Yeah.
I
But
think he scored a goal recently, or his
Yeah,
first
he's
of the
a
season or
Viking.
something like that.
He loves it.
Yeah, it's he's an interesting guy. Jágr, I used to string years and years ago. So I used to write a column in the 1990s. I used to write an English language column, hockey column for the Prague Post, so the English language newspaper.
Nice.
And it was a gig that I had kind of created for myself where I said to them, hey, you have a hockey column. I'm here in North America. Let me talk to all the Czech players and I could do a Czech hockey column. And Jágr found out, like I had talked to him that, hey, I've been to Prague. I've been to your restaurant. And he's like, started talking to me about what did you, and he had this really, because at the time people thought of him as standoffish, kind of cocky.
yeah.
And just that he had a very sort of Eastern European, if I can say, sense of humor where people didn't understand when he was joking and they thought it was cocky, but like he has this way of being extremely deadpan. But mind you, and I mentioned this in the book that I'm working on, that like my relationship that I had with Jágr back then, which wasn't like a personal, it was a journalist to player thing. It wasn't like, and I don't want to make it seem more than it was because it was.
You guys are best friends. Is
Yeah,
what
that's
you're trying
right.
to tell
I
us.
shook his hand once, so that was
He
more
knew,
than
he
enough
knew
for
that
me.
he was doing something for Prague. He knew
It's
it was doing
okay,
something
Steve.
for Prague.
You guys are best
papers.
friends.
But
We get it.
when he had his gambling problem, I let him off easy. And I really think about that. And I think about that as a journalist, going back to how culpable a lot of us are, because we talk about Ovechkin. When he had his gambling issue, I let him off easy. And and I think about when Evander Kane came to Edmonton, I asked him right off the bat a really hard question about it, which was right. But I think back to how I didn't ask that question of Jágr. And it goes back to, white leniency and white and differences when you and I do understand, there was a color line that existed, and again, it's something I'm working on. But as a whole, journalists, we don't ask a lot of hard questions, and we're a little bit afraid because the teams have kind of said, "Hey, our dressing room has changed. Like it used to be, you go in the Oilers dressing room in the '90s, 2000s. Every guy was sitting in a stall.
Yes.
Every guy was
When I
sitting in a stall,
started,
and
yep.
you could just grab. And they just said everyone is accountable.
Yep.
Because we might all be working on different angles. We might have some kind of bizarre thing where we noticed someone did something in the second period and want to ask about it. And it wasn't like now, if fans don't know, but we ask and we sort of sit together as a group and we ask one guy and they say, which 2 or 3 guys do you want? And the rest dressing room is deserted.
And they just scurry to the lounge.
And then we're
Really?
in and out
I don't
of
know.
there.
I'm not a media member, so I wouldn't know at all.
And as well, we're culpable. Ovechkin never hears a question about Ukraine. He never hears a question about it. And
Because then the Caps won't let you.
should hear
Because
about
then the
it.
Caps won't let you speak to him.
Caps PR guys
is
Russian.
And you know what? And yes, that's the PR guys. But
Yeah.
at some point, we as the media have forgotten that we also have some say in this.
You know full well that if someone did that because it's journalistically proper to do so and maintains integrity, you're not going to come back. You're not going to be welcome in that room. You're not going to get him ever again. Like you're walking that fine line.
It would take someone like an ESPN or a TNT to say, so what then?
Yeah.
So then you don't get the coverage and you don't get us. And guess what? We hold the power because but it takes, we have got so bad into the situation where ESPN, TNT, CBC, Rogers are partners rather than seeing themselves as journalists who cover the league.
Yeah.
That they don't kind of go there. And I mean, that's a very, very difficult question.
And
But
it's a
it gets-
really difficult question.
And
'cause, like,
this gets back to the thing that we kind of keep on with the, it was great game. I got to thank my teammates. It was all my teammates. And, it was a good game. We got some bounces. They're a really good team. We hear it all. This is after every game.
Yeah.
A tough game. You can never take a night off in the NHL. And this is great, but it's literally you
it's
just
too
pick up
boring,
the quotes from the
right?
bag,
It
and
is-
I find like the NBA is a little more interesting because the commentators and the players are more willing to speak their minds.
They talk
Look
shit.
at the Raptors coach last
yeah.
night. That was phenomenal.
Yeah,
was fire.
and like in other sports, but hockey has this whole thing like you just don't ever cross anyone. And we could talk about how noble and wonderful and Canadian like sort of it is with how polite everyone is.
Yeah.
But it makes it really hard because like I just think that there's so many and players have said this to me in the spots of researching my project that I'm working on, is that a lot of players are afraid to be themselves. They just don't want to be themselves.
Like,
Go ahead, Lal. No, go ahead.
I just want to comment on the Ovi stuff, right? Like, I mean, obviously we live in a free country in North America, right? With the U.S. and Canada, but like, it's a tough situation for Ovi too, right? I
We say that, but he has said a lot of things.
Yeah,
that
he has said
like,
a lot, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like, he should be asked those questions, and he should have the right to answer the way he should want.
There's a
right?
difference between a Russian player who keeps their head down, doesn't say anything about it, because I respect that. That they say, okay, I feel threatened. You know, I have family back there.
Yeah.
But he has openly endorsed. And he has openly endorsed Putin. He had the Putin youth group that he has.
Yeah.
It's a lot different than keeping your head down.
Yep.
And he has said things about Ukrainian people that if let's say, and I'm gonna say this, if I think in other contexts we would be really, let's just say if the things that were said in terms of the Ukrainian-Russian conflict were said like in the same way about Israel-Palestine, he would have said the same things. He would have been suspended for a long time by the league. But
That's
he
an
hasn't
interesting
been.
take, yeah.
And this league is, honestly, I get this. I sense this even amongst our fraternity. Usually, people hope that people break a record. They want to see it, right? Like everyone hope, and the players hope. I get the feeling now that most people are just like, please don't break Gretzky's record. Just like if there's anyone like someone else, it could be someone else.
Yeah.
But, and I know people are going to say, oh, whatever. And maybe the Washington Capitals PR people are watching this going, all right, you're never getting our dressing room. Fine. The fact is that we as, if you are willing to back it up like Ovechkin has been, willing to take that. He's walked in. He started this by starting this political discussion. He's got to be willing to answer the questions. If he had kept his head down, like I'm not going to go to some Russian player.
This is why Malkin doesn't get the questions.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Malkin's not talked about when it comes to the
And he's
war
been
in
around
Russia.
Putin too.
Yeah,
right?
but the war in Ukraine by Russia, like Malkin is not. No one talks Malkin in that way because he's kept his head down mostly.
Yeah.
And Ovi hasn't. And the one thing I'll say on Ovi with Ukraine is Slava Malamud, who was a long-time reporter in the U.S. From Russia and is now out of the reporting game. I think he's a teacher. He's tweeted and talked extensively about Ovi and Putin and why it's not the same as all the other Russian players when it comes to Ovechkin, and that he is a boy of Putin and stuff. And he's called out a lot of media for not asking the questions, and he's a guy that's from Russia and knows
And I think
the
he was
connection there.
blacklisted by the Capitals.
He was with all of this.
There you go.
But it is interesting with the media because, like, as you're talking about, Yager and wanting to go ask a question, you mentioned, you don't want to be. It's the fine line.
Yeah.
I just think of the steroid era in baseball and how baseball reporters were largely a reason for what happened with the steroid era because no one wanted to report on it. And the one, I think it was an AP reporter in St. Louis, I think it was.
Yeah, who saw
something, said something
the
about
jar
McGuire.
of whatever, the jar of.
And a bunch of reporters came at him and ripped him.
Yeah.
And it was like that's where that's one of the reasons why I also can't stand reporters now gatekeeping the Hall of Fame because it was like you were part of the steroid era and now you're saying players can't go in the Hall because of steroids even though you helped allow that to happen. But it's like as you guys are saying that it just reminds me that we've seen this story just 20 years ago.
No, and you know it. Like if you're sitting in a press conference room, right, and a coach is coming in or a player is coming in, and it doesn't matter the sport. There's this feeling that you're going to get the look. And I'm going to say you're going to get the looks burned in the back of your head if you ask a non-game question or if you kind of color outside the lines.
Yep.
So, like, if you ask about the winning streak, you're all good. If you ask about why you switched the lines, you're all good. If you ask about a player who left in the second period and didn't come back, you're all good.
Yep.
But if you say, hey, like, we noticed something in the game, or how did you react to this, or talk about something that's a little more what we call featurey. It's like that has to be done in the dressing, but
behind
in the dressing
doors.
room when you have time. But the thing is, the dressing room isn't open like it used to be.
They used to do that.
You can't get guys one-on-one
You
that
used
way.
to get one-on-ones. And, hey, I'm working on this. Can I get so-and-so for 10 minutes? Yep, absolutely. We're going to take him aside after he's done with the scrum. They don't do that anymore. That's why you don't, and that's part of why you don't get the personality, because you don't know stuff about these guys.
Yeah.
Like, if Steve wanted to write a great feature on someone, he'd be like, I just need like a 15-minute sit down with this guy. And they say no.
But we're like on the inside with media and stuff.
Yeah.
For you, like as a fan or around, does that matter to you?
It does. So,
Do
as Steve said, they have no personality. I have friends that play in the NHL that have played in the NHL, and they are some of the funniest guys I've ever met. Their chirps are hilarious, right? But the second they get on TV, and I told Petrovic, when Petr was playing,
Yeah.
it's like, bro, you turned into a robot. Like,
I interviewed him, and I've known him since he was this tall, and he
like,
came over for Christmas, and I'm like, Petch this, Petch that. He's like, yeah, well, you just want to play good tonight? I'm like, what happened to you, dude?
yeah. And it's like, it's just
fun with
built
it.
into hockey players to be a robotic way, right? I mean, I think that's kind of the culture that needs to change. You got to be more of yourself, right? I mean, like, if, like, for example, like if Jojo Arcara was playing on the Edmonton Oilers, he needs to be more like himself. He should be more about the community, who he represents, because he's a very special player, right? While he played in the league, he represented a lot of people in Canada and the U.S. and back home in India, right? So learning to be yourself has to be fostered by a culture that is accepting, right? I mean, and then you wonder why, like, I mean, again, the ratings compared to the NHL, to the NBA is a soap opera. Like,
Absolutely.
it is wild.
The drama.
It is
You don't have to
drama.
watch a game.
No.
And you could be entertained by the NBA all year.
So, Maddie, I don't watch any NBA games. I watch ESPN First Take, Undisputed. I get all my information from there.
Yeah, they're good.
That is,
all you need.
it's, and maybe the NHL needs something like a First Take or Undisputed. You know, so, you know, a group of guys just go at it, right?
They'll try
With-
Lolly, but then they're going to go get somebody who was a great reporter in the 80s or 90s and be like, this is the guy or the girl. And you're like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you take a look TNT what they're trying to do with hockey in the States, and you can see they're trying to take some of their NBA broadcasts because their halftime show is the best halftime show in any sport. Like it is TNT NBA halftime with Barkley and Kenny the Jet Smith, and the way they can break down. But the thing is, they seem to really love basketball.
Yeah.
They don't seem to like, and then they have fun with it. They will go from some really good analysis about the game to, did you see what he was wearing coming into the arena, and then into this thing about when
Shaq
they
talking about
played-
how to fill up a gas and how he saved money that one time, and just by filling up more often, and like trying to figure that all out. And you're just watching this, and it's just the boys hanging out.
Look, the Shaq
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder halftime rant is the stuff of legend. Like, you know, people, like, it's on YouTube videos. People have animated it.
Yeah.
Like when Shaq did his accusation that Stevie Wonder can see. Like, and it was like, and you're like, what is going on here? Why is Shaq doing this? And you're like, but it's, you know, it's at the same time, it's entertaining, but they somehow understand, they're willing to translate what it was like to be an NBA star. And, you know, and I know this, and this is very small, when I was covering the Raptors here when they had the camp in Edmonton and played, and how I was amazed at how the NBA PR people were like, yeah, just go on the floor. Just go talk to guys.
Yeah.
It was just like, and these guys make more money and are more famous than NHL
more
guys.
famous.
100%.
Way more
And
famous.
they're just like, just grab Van Vliet over there. Just go talk to him about whatever you want to talk about. And it's like, do you want to talk to the referee? I'm like, you let the referees be interviewed? Yeah, sure. Referees are part of the game. Like, you
Yep.
can ask him, because it was a Canadian guy from Edmonton.
Nice.
They're talking
That's
about
right.
Matt Callio was refereeing the game, and he's the first at Edmontonian like to be an NBA referee,
nice.
international referee. And you know, but at the same time, it was like, yeah, you can talk to these people, you can be open about it. And I was amazed at the whole process of how much more access there was. And these are all issues around the game, and I know I kind of cryptically refer to the book, and I should mention
around
like,
the game around Canada.
and I know Lali because from Edify, he was featured in Edify in our top 40 under 40 a couple of years ago, and I'm working on a book about race and hockey. That's why I mentioned the Evander Kane story, the Yager thing, and it's coming out this year. And I've talked to Lali about Apna Hockey and what they're doing, and really learning myself about why a lot of this stuff we talk about this keeps people of color out of the game. Because there's this feeling that there's a gatekeeperiness and a real whiteness to the NHL dressing room, the code. And I'll go back to when you talk about the code players not being themselves. a player, and in my book we'll say a black NHLer said to me that when he came up playing hockey, what he was told and what he had to do was, he said, to be the whitest version of a black man he could possibly be. And I could not believe that, because he said, he actually used the analogy, I actually really intentionally modeled myself to be like that guy in the sitcom who is like the black neighbor friend that you see. There's a stereotype in the sitcom, and that's who I was. And it's been really weird, because as someone who is white, who's not married to a white woman, but is white, for me to now talk openly about race, at first it's like you're really uncomfortable. People are kind of like, wow, this is... And I've learned to become really comfortable with saying that we need to do a lot better job. And the NHL has to do a lot better job with personality, with getting out there. Yeah. Because we need more people like Lali. We need more organizations like Apna Hockey who are going to show kids, who are going to show young people that this sport can be welcoming, and it can be a game that you want to play and be involved in and be a fan of. Yeah. And not feel
excluded.
That you're excluded. I've had NHLers of color tell me they don't like their family doesn't like to come watch them play because the hockey arena is so white.
Yeah. Hockey's stuck in neutral in so many aspects.
Yeah. Like, I mean, hockey's always been, it's my first love, right? Like, my dad came in the early 80s from India, fell in love with Gretzky, and I told Ty that too. The reason why I play hockey is because of Gretz, right? Is because of those guys from the 80s that, won the Stanley Cups. And when I was born in 92, my dad worked a couple jobs, but he put me in hockey 4 years later, right? And I played AAA growing up, and I loved it. I wanted to be a goalie at the start because I love the artwork of a goalie, like the mask and the style. Right, but I skated way too fast, so I ended up being a forward. But, as Steven said, like, I mean, I grew up around hockey with the best hockey players around in my age group, like Brendan Gallagher, Colin Parayko, Petrovic, and like, you do feel it at a younger age. And the Knights parents just said it to me to my face. They're like, it's not going to be an easy road for you, right? Because no one looked like me, right? All my friends are from hockey, right? Like Tommy's brother Paul. The whole crew, all the boys, big shout out to the boys. But it felt like I was going through it by myself. It was just me and my dad, right? I didn't really have anybody around me. So that's why Apna Hockey was born, is to create a network, to create a community for these kids that are coming up, for these parents that don't know about hockey. When we showcase like a female athlete that has earned a scholarship to a university in Canada, parents are going to be like, wow, there's girls in our community earning scholarships through hockey, education, right? So, I mean, we try to, at the end of the day, our mandate is to grow the game of hockey, right? And then, like, as Steven said, like, with the personalities, the lack of personalities is a detriment to the game, because we want to see personalities. We want to see the culture of these players.
And that comes from, like, Heidi Browning, who's the new NHL, one of the new NHL VPs. And she tells it at the league office, personalities over statistics. Personality. And the thing is we're falling back in the hockey media and the hockey world by going the other way. We're all in on statistics and, increased analytics. And we think because those 5% of fans who are really into that are feeding back to us, and we're going, yeah, but we don't understand that 95% of people don't care about XG and expected whatever. They really care about what they want to know, like, they want to know about what Connor McDavid, like, what he likes to do. Yeah. Like, and again, getting back to how it was, like, and this is 20 years ago, we go in the dressing room, and as I said, we'd get guys, but we got to know the players. Yes. Like, I knew who the players' wives were, who the kids were. Yeah. I could ask a player, just say, hey, how's it going? How are things at home? How are you doing? Yeah. Outside of hockey. And they would talk to you like, oh, it's tough. Kids got exams coming up or what have you, or like, I've got this, and the in-laws are coming in town, and like, look out. Like, it was like stuff like that. You would talk about, and you get to know them. And there was a sense of trust that you sort of built. Yep. And now they are anonymous to you outside of just their stats and what they do on the ice. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we're unwilling to cross the line to actually get to know guys. So I think when guys give even small glimpses of himself, I think about in training camp when Skinner started waxing poetic about what it was like to be a dad, and we all went, "Oh, that's great and crazy," because he just offered a little bit of himself
And
away from the
people
ice.
relate to that.
Yes.
But people relate to that when he talked about his son walking for the first time or trying to walk or crawl. He says, "Bo did this," and it reminded me. People go, "Yes, I know that," and you know what? You're a new dad. I like you because I associate with
Yeah.
you, and they don't understand how powerful that is.
Does Zach Hyman, when he walks his dog, have a pooper scooper, or does he put the bag on his hand?
Yeah.
I use the bag on my hand.
Yeah.
Oh, so do I. So do I. Just another guy. That's why I like him. Look, he's going to score 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds so stupid, but it is truly. People are like, he's just a dude, you know.
Yeah.
But a couple of things about that, Steve, is like now, like I still do interviews in there. I still hop in the scrums. It's good to show the EST mic and stuff. But the best stuff I get is from whoever's still lingering around. I
Right.
just go and talk to them. Like last year, I remember this. Nugent Hopkins, he was having a tough go, but he just had his baby, him and Bree. And I know them from the day he was drafted, Bree, getting to know her when I was at Oilers TV. And I was just asking about having the kid, being a dad, how was Bree doing? And I had the Oilers PR sitting right there, making sure I was not asking anything out of line, off the record. And I looked over, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I've known this guy since he was 17, 18 years old. The mic is away, and I'm asking him how his life is going because I have a relationship with him outside of just microphone, question, camera, or recorder. And that's what it has become.
Yeah, personality is what gravitates people to people.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think that's the basis of what makes people attractive is their personality and understanding what their personality is, right? So it's funny because like I was in Winnipeg before the holidays for their South Asian night, and I got a chance to talk to Mark Chipman for a while. And I first thanked Mark. Winnipeg Jets were the first team to donate money to Apna Hockey, right? So we have a program with them. So we're creating these access points. And I told Mark, thank you for believing in us. And he's like, no, I know you guys. He's like, I know what you guys are doing. And I gave him the whole spiel, right? I told him, like, where hockey is compared to the other leagues, right? So I always give Connor McDavid's contract as an example. He makes $12.5 million USD. Is that a whole lot of money?
Eric's Paul Bissanasti yesterday pointed out that Eric Spoelstra, who got a new contract extension with the Heat, is now going to make more than Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
Kelly
120
Olynyk,
million.
someone brought
Yeah.
up.
Well, I said like Yusei Kikuchi's number 4 starter on the Jays makes twice as much money.
I mean, the
as Connor.
Saudis
Yeah.
are just throwing
Number
reckless
f-
money.
Like, and I tell that to like, the kids when I say
but-
like, why you should play baseball rather than hockey. I like
Left-handed relief pitcher.
Yusei Kikuchi, like
Yeah.
left-handed
Yeah.
relief pitcher.
Left-handed relief pitcher.
You,
Yeah, that's where the money's
Yusei
at.
Kikuchi makes twice as much money as Connor McDavid,
Yeah.
and Yusei is the number 4 starter
Yeah.
on a team.
But that's where you want to go to leave the NHL.
You got to
You need
compare.
to start getting more money into your
Yeah.
league,
Yeah.
so you can start paying these guys more.
But how do you
to
get
pay
more
these-
money? It's the eyes on your
Yes,
product. And how do you get
100%.
more eyes on your product? You got to grow your
Get
game.
more people, yeah.
Have you seen the migration come
Kim-
from South Asia to North America? It's huge.
Kim Davis has, in the talks I had with her, and regarding this, Kim Davis is the VP of Diversity of Inclusion in the NHL, a role they created, I think, in 2017. And she's been working to really kind of build that brand. And she said the biggest thing you got to tell people is that diversity is not a charitable thing. Like, everyone thinks it's the right thing to do, and no, it's a business decision. And you have
It's
to
a
think
business.
of it as a business thing.
It's a business.
That it has to be, you're getting
It's
more eyes
gold.
on your product.
It's a cold hard
But
thing to
that's how
say.
you get
but that's,
owners to listen.
That's
how
the way
you
the
get
water works.
32 majority white owners in a room to care.
Yeah.
Is when you say, these are the jerseys you're not selling, these are the people you're not getting, and you look, let's say when the Raptors won the championship, and you looked at the,
How
the
diverse
city
that
of
crowd
Toronto,
is.
and how diverse that crowd was compared
And
to
how large it was.
and how large it was, and
Look at all the money that's out there.
Yeah.
all the money that's out
what
there.
They need.
and
They need to
it's-
see dollar signs. It's very cold.
So that's
but
what I
where
told
it goes.
Mark. I told Mark, I was like, look at McDavid's salary compared to the other leagues. Why isn't it there yet? And he's like, because we don't have enough people watching our
Yep.
game. I was like, what do? I'm not black. I'm not indigenous. I'm not Chinese. I'm South Asian. I run a South Asian hockey network that's aimed at growing the game in the South Asian community. I told Mark, when there's new fans from South Asia that immigrate to Winnipeg, and now you have this brilliant South Asian night that they do once a year. That was great. Like, it was one of the best South Asian nights I've ever seen. And big shout out to Gani Man, who is one of our coordinators out there. and he did a fantastic job coordinating the whole night. I told Mark, this night is a great step, but the programs we run with Apna Hockey, with your first shift, with Bauer and the NHLPA and Hockey Canada, that's going to allow new Winnipeg citizens that have come to Winnipeg from South Asia, now they have a channel for their kids to get into hockey. And we don't even mind if they don't want to play forever, but we're trying to make fans at the end of the day. We need to make sure that the arena is full of fans that are from different countries, because that's what's going to grow the game. And Mark did not dispute one thing I said that whole conversation. He's like, you're spot on with everything. That's what we need to do, because we shouldn't be doing it when we're frantically, wanting money. You should do it naturally and create these access points throughout the league for South Asians, for different communities to get into the game. And the biggest thing I told Mark was, there's a league called MLS, and there's a guy in Miami called Leo Messi. The league should probably look in the back mirror, because they're going to go past the NHL with viewership and everything in the next probably 10 to 20 years, easily. And then another thing is...
World Cup, I think, makes that a little sooner.
Yeah, World Cup will make it a little sooner.
Say this, I'll say this as a counterpoint. The World Cup never has translated, just like Olympics never... People always think World Cups and Olympics translate into more viewership for other sports outside of it, and they don't for some reason. Because they're singular events. MLS needs to build they have this great thing with Messi, and they have a problem. So what they found last year at MLS is that the ratings, when Messi was playing, it went up. But all the other games went down. It was like it made everyone recognize the other teams weren't as interesting. Like, what they need is not one Messi. They need to bring in groups so that other teams, because what you take a look at what the train wrecks in Toronto and Montreal, teams that used to have much bigger followings and are kind of shrinking in terms of their following, because they've been mismanaged on field and what have you. It's sometimes can be a poison pill when you bring in one giant star. He brings all this viewers to Inter Miami, a new team that really doesn't have much of a history. But what does that do for the rest of the league? It makes you not look at the rest of the league. That's what you need to
the way
have that spread
Beckham was
out.
able to bring in Messi and now Suarez, I think.
Suarez.
He's going to be coming to Miami pretty soon.
Busquets is there.
Like, there's a plan with Beckham, right? Right now, the biggest competition for MLS is the Saudis. The Saudis are putting a lot of money for these soccer players from Europe to come down to Saudi. MLS is fighting Saudi right now because the European leagues have been there for centuries, right? They've been there for a very long time. So and the same kind of with golf as well. But like when it comes to MLS, right, bringing Messi over, it's a step in the right direction, right? They're going to get more players. The lifestyle here is very intriguing for soccer players from Europe.
A lot of them live here in the offseason.
Right?
Like a lot of them live in Florida in the offseason. Because it used to be, like,
they go tour there.
Noticed because it's like, wow, I didn't know that this many players like spent like 2 months in Miami.
Have you
but
noticed?
It was because like no one knows them.
Have you noticed?
They just go to the beach and everyone's like, that's great.
Have you noticed during the holiday break, like Vinny Jr. from Madrid came and saw LeBron James. Alfonso Davies was in New York City.
Yeah,
right. Like, but they love coming to North America. Obviously, Alfonso's from Edmonton, but I think he was in town
practicing a little bit too.
He was here.
Thierry Henry would go to San Antonio a lot because he was really good friends with Tony Parker, right? So he'd go to basketball games and they would they knew each other from like French national programs and what have you, and he would be in basketball games all the time. And so you're right. But they used to come over here to be anonymous, and now that's kind of going away
changing.
in the global picture.
Yeah.
These guys don't have that ability to be anonymous anymore. So, but I agree with you. I just think that if they put all the eggs into one basket, it can be pretty dangerous, right?
They gotta spread it out.
You've got to have the other teams. There has to be.
What, Insigne didn't do it with Bernadeschi out in Toronto?
Yeah, no, it's like that. What a train wreck! What a soap opera that was. It's just like, but Toronto, outside of those 2 years or 3 years of success in the Javinko years, has really got it wrong with the designated players. What they have got it wrong so many times, where they brought in, and I covered that team for the first few years, and it was what a train wreck.
They need Drake behind them. You get Drake on board as an ambassador.
Well,
he brings in a lot
of some players.
But he's actually
right?
worked for them. Like he actually helped to try to bring in some players, and they've had him.
So,
but it's not like Raptors games where he's there. He's not there for Leafs games. He's not there for Argos games. He's not there for FC games.
He's always there for Raptors games. So that's another thing. So I did this marketing pitch for the NHL a few years ago, And I just dissected what the NBA was doing.
Yeah.
So like, I'll give you a few examples of it. Collaboration is something that the league and the teams have a hard time doing. Like they don't just collaborate with any. Well, they have a hard time collaborating.
The
right?
NHL?
With the NHL and the leagues and the teams in the league as well. With the NBA, like they're so open to collaborating and putting the spotlight on some people that might not even have to. Like, what's the point of even putting the spotlight on him? Look at Nav Badia, the super fan. He's from our community. He's sitting courtside. He has a turban, a beard. But he's been empowered by the Raptors. And look at how much South Asian direction is coming. Like Toronto is basically the first stop for most South Asians when they come to Canada.
Yeah.
Right? So right away, they'll see Nav Badia courtside. They're going to relate to that right away. And then maybe they'll become fans, right? Because it's exciting, right? They'll start tuning into games. Maybe go to a game, right? So look, they have an ambassador that represents a whole side of like basically a portion of fans that usually might get overlooked, right? So the Toronto Maple Leafs do a really good job with Justin Bieber, right? So like I had some pretty good talks with Mark Fraser. He's their diversity guy out there. And I was talking to Mark. I was like, for the All-Star game, like, there's a rapper from our community. His name is Nav. He's signed by Weekend, right?
Wow.
And Nav has done collabs with Travis Scott, has his own record produced. He's really well known. I was like, Mark, did you know he is a Toronto Maple Leafs fan? He's like, no, I didn't know. He's like, Mark's like, do you know him? I'm like, no, I don't know him. Like, I would probably recommend you reach out to him because he'd be a great ambassador for the South Asian community when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs, on that kind of celebrity level.
I like that.
Right.
The NHL's stuck in
Makes
its
sense.
ways, like if you want to look at it.
But Toronto's very progressive. The Maple
They
Leafs
are,
really
but
good.
like you look at Heritage Classic and who was the band?
Nickelback.
Right? It's like you're just sticking with all the
Which
same
is fine.
thing.
I
It
don't
is,
blame it. It's
but
fine.
you have to sign some points
Whereas,
for the
like,
journal.
and it's true. Like, you go to other places, right? And like even in Europe, like the soccer teams, like there was Arsenal commercial where they had like all their celebrity fans. So Idris Elba is like doing this thing. If I wouldn't have got into the acting, I would have played for the Arsenal, right? With a very like North London. He put it on, and it's just like, but people go like, holy crap, right? Like that's Idris Elba talking about how much he loves Arsenal, right? And it's like, and how much it means to him. And then like, Daniel Kaluuya talks about Arsenal. And the celebrity, you talk about the celebrity fans and Drake in Toronto. And, and I mentioned
Justin
Robert
Bieber,
Plant Wolves, right? Elton John's relationship with Watford.
John
People
Hamm
know
and the
that.
Blues.
People know John Hamm with the Blues.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Fair on the Kings.
Yeah. Will Ferrell and the Kings, yeah.
But you need not just that, but again, it's important to have some diversity in those celebrities too.
It is. So like with Justin Bieber, but like think about this. Like he has I don't know how many followers for his music. And then he does a collab with the Toronto Maple Leafs, has that black jersey, and then on the inside it's their Drew logo, right? So imagine if you're a fan of Justin Bieber, his music, and you have nothing, you don't even know about hockey, and then he does this collab. You're like, yo, that's sick. I want to grab that jersey, and then you start learning about hockey. It's opening doors. That's all it is. It's just
Jay-Z made the Yankee hat famous. He
did.
And the Yankees are an iconic baseball franchise.
Yeah.
But the Yankee hat is a fashion statement now for people
long
that
as it's not a
don't
red
even
Yankee hat.
that people don't even care about
Yeah.
baseball. Steve Sandor, Matt Iwanyk, Lali Toor, and Tom Gazzola here on the EST Hangout, presented by Mott's Clamato Caesar. Portions of this hour brought to you by the Hive Product Marketing, the official merch partner of EST. Promotional products that bring the buzz. Be sure to check them out at thehiveproductmarketing.com. You wanted to say something?
I just have a text, 780-218-9999. Good conversation today. Jeez. This one from the Paddle Boat says, I don't need the NHL to be like the NBA. NHL won't die if it doesn't start mirroring a soap opera. So this goes back a little bit to like the intermissions and the half times we were talking about. I watch the NHL to watch hockey. That's from the Paddle Boat. And that's okay.
Do you
nothing
know
wrong
what
with
the
the numbers,
ratings are?
though.
Okay, and I'll say
Yeah.
this here. The ratings for the Stanley Cup this year were about 1/10 that they were 20 years ago.
Wow.
Now, in
But
North
now
America,
the one question, the devil's advocate would be TV numbers have also just dropped,
TV numbers,
right?
but they haven't picked up
Overall.
any online numbers, right? And like the thing is viewership is way down. Hockey registrations in Canada way down.
Yeah.
Right? United States they're rebounding a bit, but people say hockey's just fine. But the thing is, hockey's not just fine. Hockey is shrinking, folks. And if you don't see it, like it's because in Edmonton we're in this bubble. Right? Because
We're isolated.
It's like we are in this this place, and I've used this comparison, and players have kind of said, yeah, this is kind of what it is. It's the Green Bay of the NHL.
Yeah.
It's a small market, but everyone is bought in, and you need to pull yourself out. So you know what? Next time, let's say you're on your vacation to Arizona, or you're go to LA, Southern California, take the kids to Disneyland. Ask how many people at Disneyland, how many have heard of the Ducks? Ask outside. They're going to probably see the Disney movie. Yeah, I've seen the Disney movie. You ask them. It's a niche sport in the United States. It is a sport that is populated by wealthy SUV driving families in the suburbs of cities. It doesn't have that cachet yet, and it has been shrinking. So everyone says that, the NHL is just fine. The NHL is just fine. The NHL knows it's not. They've hired a bunch of people to change. They've hired people like Heidi Brownie and Kim Davis, and you should be asking, why did they hire these people?
If everything was
to
okay.
be in their offices if they thought everything was just fine. No, they understand they have a problem.
Yeah.
They understand they have a huge demographic problem. And this is, I think that idea that it's just fine is because we're in the Edmonton bubble. And I don't mean to make to get all adversarial with the listener.
No.
But it's really important to understand that.
It's one of those things where, actually, no business should ever think that they're just fine. You
Never.
should always want to be looking ahead and how can we grow? How can we make more? The CFL had that problem where they didn't look at growing well enough.
Yeah.
And now it's talking about how do you get new fans? How do you reattract it? How do you get that energy back in the Canadian Football League? And that's where the NHL is headed. You're going to be the CFL in a sense if you think everything's just fine, where 15, 20 years from now, we're going to be sitting there going, okay, we need to figure out how to get new fans going into this, because years ago we just thought it's just fine. And that's
and it's weird because the owners that own these teams have worked relentlessly in business and were never content. So why are they so content with teams now?
And it's also
right?
just,
as an owner, I would want more and more and more.
But even as a fan too, you sit there and you go, I want the Oilers to have more cap space. I want the Oilers to be able to keep McDavid and Draisaitl on this team and not have to trade Darnell Nurse because you got to sign Evan Bouchard and stuff. Well, how could you get more cap space? We'll get more eyeballs on the sport, which gets more money in the sport, which means the cap could go up, which means you have more money to spend on these players.
But
and there is a value. So if you want the Edmonton Oilers long term, now it's not going to be
Grow
for
your
this.
game.
It's going to be. It takes longer than just get people watching. But if you get people into the NHL, the cap will be higher, and you could spend more money.
Exactly. And meanwhile, 11 American teams are scrambling because they've lost their local TV deals.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's 11 teams going to next season with no local TV deals. And you see that the Arizona Coyotes are talking about going back to a local TV station, going back to the days of Oilers on ITV or A Channel. That's where they're going. That's what
channel.
That's what I grew up on.
Yeah, exactly. But they're actually some teams are looking at going back to that model because of the collapse of, and that doesn't just affect the NHL. It's affecting.
Yeah.
That's why the
NBA
Minnesota Twins and the Cleveland
Suns have
Guardians
done
are
that.
selling players like crazy.
The Suns have done that. They're on regular TV. But it's funny, though, because it's this is where the difference is. The NBA and the NFL are two leagues that could honestly have almost no one show up to their barns.
Yep.
Yeah.
And still be okay because their TV deals, the national ones,
Juicy.
are monsters. And the NFL even bigger. The NHL doesn't have that. They are still in that gate driven, and you need people.
Theoretically, you could put an NFL stadium. You could say, if I'm a billionaire, I'm going to build a 60, 70,000 seat stadium in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming.
Yep.
And then I'm going to get an expansion franchise, and it's a license to print money on the TV money.
It is.
Yep.
Yes.
It's a license to print money.
It is.
License print
You
money.
don't need anyone to show up to an NFL game, and the NFL owners would be
The fact that
mostly
the Green Bay
fine.
Packers in a place that's got 100,000 people, and it's not close to Milwaukee.
They'll just be mad that there's another owner coming in.
Yes.
It thrives. They thrive.
Yes. I would just say to Paddle Boat's point, I understand what he's saying. You don't have to like the drama. You don't have to like the other stuff or how the game or certain sports are trying to adapt and open things. You don't have to. You can just watch the game to watch the game. That's fine. And you can do it without feeling like it's being infringed or they're putting this on you. You can watch the game. There's nothing wrong with that. But the league and the teams and the game in general, the sport of hockey, we're using hockey here as an example, for it to thrive, grow, and succeed, still be top of mind, it does need to diversify. Yeah. But you can still, if you just want to watch straight up hockey, whistle to whistle, first minute to 60th minute, you can still do that. It's okay.
Yeah. And what's great about this day and age with media is somebody might say, I don't want to have to tune into EST or whatever it is and hear all about all that drama. But there are so many different podcasts and avenues out there. You'll find the one that is just talking about the X's and O's of hockey,
right,
and doesn't deal with the drama. And you can get your information that you want from there. And then for the people that want the soap opera story, like not having to watch the games but only follow the storylines, what's crazy. There's going to be those spots for those people, and like,
that needs to be created, though, right? Like, there's nothing like that in hockey where there's a panel of reporters that just go at it, right? Like Stephen A. and like Shannon, like. They go at it, right? I mean, they have so many different opinions and varying opinions on each little detail of the game. There's nothing like that for the National Hockey League. We never even...
there's nothing like that just in general in Canada. Canada doesn't do that.
We don't do that, right? We don't have debates, right? We don't stir the pot at all, right? We just don't have that. But like from my angle, it's like, at the end of the day, like, I'm just trying to grow the game. I just want to see more kids more hockey players in the NHL that look like me. Right, so like we're heading to the All-Star game in Toronto in a couple of weeks, and me and Damps, we talked about it. I was like, it's cool that the NHL is inviting us, but like, what about the elite players that are coming up in our community? There's a kid from Winnipeg, and he wasn't actually there for the South Asian night because he had a tournament out there. His name is Prab Buthel. He's the captain of the U15 AAA team. In 24 games, this kid has 56 goals, 85 points, projected to go first round WHL draft.
That's all he's got so far.
That's all he's got so far, right? 56 goals, right? And he still has another 10 games to go.
Yeah,
but like he's ripping it up. I know, he's ripping it up.
Yeah.
And like when I heard about this kid, I had the biggest smile because you see hope. You see someone that's gonna, carry the next torch after Archie Baines, it cracks the NHL with the Vancouver Canucks. You're gonna see that torch being passed, right? And I was like, damn, we got to bring this kid to All-Star weekend. I called my contacts with the NHL. I was like, Donnie, what do you think about this? Donnie's like, that's brilliant. Bring him. We're also bringing a female player from Surrey, BC, Madeline Rye. She got a full scholarship to Western University, so she's going to go see all the PWHL players.
Nice,
right? So like,
perfect.
Again, how do you inspire? How do you create these silos where like a player that's coming up from our community can have that picture with that NHL player? There's so many pictures of current NHL players that are 18, like Bedard with like with Connor McDavid, with Sidney Crosby when they're younger. I want Prab to meet his favorite NHL player at the All-Star game. I want him to take a picture because you know what? Maybe 6 years from now, he's going to be in the ice against him, right? I want that for him, right? And like, that's what I love doing. I love helping our community, our hockey players get to that next level, or even just bring them out to events like the All-Star game. Because like when I played AAA, no one's asking me to go to the NHL All-Star game. That's for sure. So we did that, right? We created that network where we were able to do this for them. Right? To grow the game.
Well, I want to get into something with that. The movers and shakers, let's get into that. Brought to you by Marco and Mike Realty One Group Insider. Let Marco and Mike earn your trust if you're looking to buy or sell your home. Give them the good old PTO contract and let them prove to you why they are the best duo for this. MarcoandMike.com for more information. You've mentioned Apna Hockey a few times now. We've brought it up here, but can you just explain for those that don't know, what is Apna Hockey? Exactly, and what your guys are fully trying to do.
Yeah, like
even the name Lali.
Even the name, I know.
Like years ago, you taught me when I came and helped you guys out.
So like way back in the day, Tommy was at our first hockey camp. Apna in Punjabi, Hindi, Urdu, basically the languages of South Asia, from like Afghanistan all the way down to South India. If you say Apna, everybody knows what Apna is. Apna means our, so it translates to our hockey.
Nice.
So, I mean, the word is a very beautiful word, right? Like, it's something that was very close to me growing up because, I had Apne as in family around me, but I didn't have Apne, like, hockey players that I could look up to or anybody that looked like a role model to me, right? Like, that looked like me. I had nobody. So, I mean, Apna, it started out, like, as I was saying, Tommy, you were at the first one, right? It was a hockey camp. But as the social climate of the NHL and hockey got worse and worse, like, I mean, the reason why I started is because I went through a lot of stuff. So we became more vocal on kind of our points. We were in mainstream media about talking about, issues that we went through that, as hockey players being minorities. And like, it just kept growing to a point where, we were invited to different conferences. We were showcasing a lot of the athletes actually on our platform. So when I played, I was actually a very invisible player. None of my community knew I played. I'm from Northside Edmonton. Right, my community is in the South Side. I was like one of the first AAA players to play in Edmonton. No one knew that, right? No one knew I was, a really good hockey player growing up, and I missed that. I didn't have that growing up. So that's what Apna Hockey turned into. It's a community. It's the South Asian Hockey Network, right? So like in 2020, because of all our work and how many kids we were showcasing, like I mean, like I got a whole list of male athletes that are playing from junior all the way up to pro. Like they could represent India at the Olympics if India chooses to, and they could compete against. And the funny thing is, there was a former NHL coach that actually took a look at the roster. He was coaching the South Koreans at the Pyeongchang Olympics, 2018. He's like, Lali, this team. I'm not saying it's going to beat Canada, Russia, or US, but he's like, this team should be at the Olympics.
It could compete.
It's like a Kazakhstan and Latvia. Like they should be there. There's enough players to do it. So like when I heard that, I'm like, hey, we're onto something, because none of these players have ever been connected by anything. And just like me, I knew of a few players growing up that were my age playing at elite levels. Sahir Gill, he's playing out in Europe right now. And Kevin Sandor, I actually played against him. He's the only South Asian player I ever played against. Kevin Sandor was the 3rd round draft pick to the Buffalo Sabres in 2010, the same draft year as me. I never got to meet him, but I knew of him. But there's nothing connecting us. So like what this network does, it connects all the players, the parents, everything. The whole community is connected through this, right? With Hockey Night in Canada Punjabi, with Harn Ryan, with like a lot of stuff. And then after we won the Willie O'Ree, it was just a springboard into even bigger and better things, because we were the first South Asians in the 100-year history of the National Hockey League to win an NHL award, which is mind-boggling. No one's ever won an NHL award, and Damps and Apna Hockey, and we were the first ones to win an NHL award. And you know what's the craziest part is learning about the history of South Asians in hockey, right? We met Robin Bawa, the first South Asian to play in the National Hockey League. We're super close with them. We do different South Asian nights across the league, from Dallas to LA to New Jersey. We're doing one here in Edmonton actually in March, and Calgary's doing one as well in March. So like we're getting, and again, they bring Apna Hockey a part of it so we can tap into those local South Asian hockey markets and educate them on, the history of South Asian hockey. So like when it comes to Apna Hockey and kind of what we're trying to do, again, it's to grow the game, diversify the game, try to bring new fans in. Because of the immigration patterns from South Asia, it's wild to see how many people from South Asia are moving to North America. And as I was talking to Mark Chipman, how are we capturing that new migration, right? How are we capturing them as fans? Are they going to be NBA fans, NFL fans, MLS fans? I told Mark Chipman, the owner of the Winnipeg Jets, I was like, wait till cricket gets here.
I was going to bring up
even more.
Cricket going to start growing.
And Mark looked at me, and I'm like, wait till cricket comes here, because it's going to grow faster than MLS, and it's going to jet past MLS, NHL. It's going to be pushing up towards the NBA, like past MLB for sure. Like that's how big it's going to get here.
They had a cricket showcase at Dodger Stadium. This is like 8 or 9 years ago, and they brought like stars of yesteryear, a few current players, and the crowds outside of in LA Live where we were staying as the Oilers were about to play the Kings, waiting for autographs, pictures, was insane. Usually there's like 10 or 15 autograph seekers trying to get pictures with the players from the visiting team. There were hundreds of people. And I was just like, what the hell's going on? And they're like, it's the cricket showcase at Dodger Stadium. And DVD tells a story where we met Sachin Tendulkar, and there was a press event for the cricket guys, and then the Oilers were holding one for their pregame, and we're sitting there waiting for the Oilers to finish up their meeting, and this little smaller South Asian guy walks by, hands behind his back. He's like, "Are you guys here for the hockey, the ice hockey?" We're like, "Yep." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he starts asking a bunch of questions. And we're like, "What are you here for? What's going on at Dodger Stadium?" He's telling us about cricket, and he's like, "I'm Sachin, nice to meet you." I'm like, "Hey, I'm Tom. Hey, I'm Derek." I got bored of the conversation because I'm like, "Well, I got to go do this interview. Nice to meet you. Have a great time." Yeah. Derek looked him up, and he's like, "That is the most famous cricket player in the world that we
watch
just
how many
met."
followers he got. He probably has over 300 million followers.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm like, who?
Exactly.
And he was like, there were some monster dudes that had like all this crazy style, and you're like, okay, I guess these cricket players are just giants. And then there's this just like normal little guy, and he's the best player ever, and he was just asking us about the ice hockey.
The ice hockey, because they're used to field hockey.
Yeah.
So when my dad came to North America, like to Edmonton, he was a field hockey player back in India. right? And the reason why he gravitated toward ice hockey is because the word hockey, right? But it's Tom, what you said was like so true because like
I had
you
no
had
clue.
no clue. And these athletes from India, from any Commonwealth nation like Australia, the UK, some of these athletes like from Pakistan too, like there's Pakistan, it's huge cricket in that part of the world. These athletes have monstrous followings, more than LeBron James.
Yeah.
And it's multiple of them, not just one LeBron James. Like there's vast amount. And some of the lesser known ones are rivaling like basically NFL players, the NBA. Like I think the only other sport that kind of rivals the following of cricket players are the soccer players. And that's it. Right? That's the only competition that they have when it comes to those followings and the numbers behind them.
Is the NFL attracting enough newer people?
NFL?
Newer Americans?
well,
and like
that's
is
why
that
the
going to be an issue for the NFL? Like the NFL's not going to be
culture.
not the top league in the US for like the next, like it's still going to be the top league for another 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
But long term, like baseball, horse racing, boxing used to be the biggest sports in the US in the 80s or whatever.
They're working so hard at it, right?
Are they?
All the games that in England, games in Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Germany.
I think eventually the reason that there's a 17 game schedule now is eventually I think in their perfect world everyone will play 8 at home, 8 on the road,
And one international?
Everyone will have one game that will be some neutral site game somewhere. And
That's
I
not a
think
crazy idea. I think that's better than having a team based somewhere else.
it's and I think that the NFL.
It's not bad.
I think logistically it might be hard to put a team in London still, like the road trips for the teams out west. Honestly, for out east, it's not that much of a difference in the flight. But like
5 hour
if you had
time
if the
difference.
Rams had to play a team from London, it'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, like you'd have to give them a bye week or something like that after that.
Which the NFL does that right now. The teams get an option of a bye week after if they win for the teams that go play the European games.
Really?
Yeah, and I think
Ravens went
it's-
this year. I can't remember who they played or last year, and they chose not to
And
take the bye
they were in
week.
Germany this year a couple times as well, right? And they played in Mexico. They understand that, but the NFL is so unique that I think when people they just see what the circus is about, right?
Yeah.
Because American
is.
culture is so big and so large. People know of that this sport with Americans resonates like no else. And there's I've read articles in BBC and stuff where Brits go for the first time, they don't get it, and they're like, why would you like a sport that stops? Like they actually only play, like they timed it once, like there's only like 24 minutes of actual game action in 3.5 hours,
less.
right? It's like
Yes.
it's what do you have? And they kind of mock it. And I know that if you ever notice something, look at the English Premier League schedule when the NFL plays. And they say they draw that out of a hat in the English Premier League. That's not true.
Yeah.
It's always like
work
when the NFL plays on a Sunday, it's always like, oh, Arsenal's playing United this week on Sunday, right? To take the eyeballs away from the
Right.
NFL. It's always like, oh, Man City's playing United on Sunday.
Like when the NFL is in England?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's like,
Oh, I'm going to have to look at that.
it's always
interesting
it
take.
always seems to be the big like it's not like, oh, it's Brighton versus like Everton today. It's like no.
Because the majority of the games, like the big part, Saturday's big for Premier League. They have matches,
But the
it could go
Sunday
Friday,
marquee
Saturday,
game-
Sunday, Monday. But Sunday is like the Sunday night football.
Yeah,
they
it's
have
like
that.
they have
right.
it, and it's usually but they make sure, and I'm saying like
that's
it's like a lot of times it's in the same. Oh, it's like the NFL's in London. Oh, well, we're gonna do a North London derby today.
Well, they're
like it's
business
gonna be Arsenal
people.
Tottenham this morning,
That's what
so it's
business
gonna be
people
like
should do.
we
Right.
can take the eyeballs away a little bit.
Right. Smart.
But I
Premier
think
League
that's,
has built themselves up away. They've gone away from the big four. They the money wise, they make more than La Liga. They make more than all of them.
Well, and
There's smart
that's
business
why
out there.
you know why. And I've said this to people when people say, "Well, there's Real Madrid, and then there's the Italian teams, and why does the English league get more interest?" Because I said, let's say like Arsenal lose to Fulham, people are surprised but they're not shocked. It's not like if Real Madrid's playing Getafe and it's going to be 7-0. The bottom teams are still competitive in the English league, right? And I said you judge the strength of the league not by the top teams, but by the bottom teams. So if you did a tournament and you said, okay, we're going to take Luton and they're going to play Getafe, well, Luton's going to hammer them. It's not even going to be close because they're that much better. The bottom teams in England, and I will say the teams playing the championship in England are way better than the second half of other leagues. Like you could say this bottom half of Serie A would play teams in the championship, and the championship teams would kill them. I'm sure there's some Italian listener right now who's about to send a text to me about this.
I'm Italian. I have no idea what you're talking about,
like,
so I believe you, though.
But like, if,
No, you're right.
If it's
like MLS is
if Girona was to
championship.
no, I'm not Girona. If you have a team from the lower half, and I shouldn't have used that as an example. If it's a team from the lower
Hellas
half, of
Verona
Italian
from
league-
Italy.
yeah, if Hellas Verona was to go down and play Sunderland, Sunderland would hammer them, and it wouldn't. It on a neutral site because the structure there is so much better down lower in these leagues.
Wow.
So that's why the English league is stronger because these teams can all stumble. Real Madrid and Barcelona don't stumble, right? Like this, they don't.
Yeah.
Like as soon as they're playing someone who's under fourth place in the league, it's an automatic W. Whereas
Like Bayern,
it's like
right?
you
Same
see like
thing.
Arsenal had this stumble through the Christmas season where they lost 2 in a row against games that you say, oh, they should beat. Well, yes, they should, but it's not. It's not as like stunning or shocking as it would be in the rest. So that's the difference in that league, and that's what makes the English league so massive.
They could sell it better.
Yeah, so like it's interesting how the NFL is going out there because they are trying to take away fans from the football, well, like the European football out there, right? Like, did you know that 85% of the people that watch NFL football have never played?
Yeah.
I believe that.
I could believe that.
It's just
Like,
like
they have not played it.
It's like 80% of
believe
the
that.
people cheer for college football never went to that college. That's the thing that never always. it's like
Let's
like,
go
oh,
you.
It's like, I
Let's
love
go you, baby.
Duke. I'm like you could get into Duke. like this.
I didn't even apply to any of them, and I cheer for them.
It's like, but you could get in there if you tried. Like it's like, do you understand what they are? Like, it's like, it's that part of that is always, and I love it in a weird way, but I also gotta say, and again, maybe because of the way we are in Canada with colleges and universities, let's face it, we look at our university as a place that you educated us, I paid you a bit of money, and our relationship is over.
Yeah,
like,
it's
it's like
it's
I
not
don't
like
have
the
this
US.
like, alumni thing.
Yeah.
I don't wear stuff from my old university.
I don't have
like,
anything from
I
my
get,
college.
I get
I think I need to get
emails from
something
U of
from
A
it.
all the time for
It's like,
alumni donation. I'm like, I'm not. I don't
no
know.
emotional
I'm good.
attachment to it. I have no emotional attachment, and I just don't like. And I just the ability to build this deep emotional attachment.
Sense of pride.
Yeah, the sense.
But
of
that goes
pride.
back to like soccer culture in Europe, where you grew up and your family cheers for a certain
Yeah.
club. You cheer for that
But
certain
but
club.
Right.
I know Canadians who go down to American schools and they have it. Like
Yeah.
they come back
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and I have talked to like
Lots.
the soccer players in the women's national team and a lot of them played NCAA and it's like
You get brainwashed.
and they go back. It's like all the time. Oh, I have to go back to Nebraska. Why? Oh, Cornhuskers have a big game against Oklahoma this week.
They-
Really,
I wish I was part of that. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. I
I-
wish I was part of that.
like it's like
funny.
it's like
I would
like,
love
gotta
to
go
do
home.
that.
I have a story about that. I was playing men's league summer hockey, and I was wearing an OU hat that I bought when I was living in Oklahoma briefly. And this guy comes up to me, younger guy. He's like, "OU, did you go there?" And I was like, "No, I ended up there for work or whatever." And he's like, "No way, I play hockey for them." And I was like, but at the same time, I'm like, that's actually pretty sweet. It's club hockey. It's actually there's good hockey players there. And then
Is it Div 1 or 3?
it's Div 3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's club hockey. But it is, you're getting an education, you're
Yeah.
playing hockey, and great for the kid, right?
The hockey's growing
Yeah,
in the States.
absolutely.
College-wise,
And-
starting to get
Yeah.
there.
And then at the end of it, he goes, "Boomer sooner." And I was like, "Boomer sooner."
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But what you just said,
Roll Tide.
college hockey is it's getting big, right? I mean, a lot of these up and coming kids that are, instead of taking the WHL route, like they're taking the college route. It's way better experience,
the leagues are
longer
starting
time
to
for
do
you
it.
to develop, right? Like, I mean, and the experience itself is very unique, right? I mean, imagine putting like a Harvard tarp on. Like, how sick is that, right?
It's elitist, but yes, it would
Yeah.
be sick.
Like, how sick is that?
It would be awesome. Like,
Remember
I
I
go
said
there.
about you couldn't get into that school? If
Yeah.
it wasn't for it.
No chance.
Yeah, it'd be a tough one to get into.
Yeah.
It's
It's a different, but it's a culture
it
that's been
is.
instilled, and it's a
Yes.
sense of pride that's instilled, and that, in my opinion, is wicked business.
Yes.
there's a reason then their college football can go and make a bunch of cash, and now the players can go make money because
That's
they have
good.
made it all this thing where it's business and money and we talked about this a bit yesterday on the show, and there's a good and a bad to that. You know,
Totally.
I love
Of
our
course.
universities. There'd be more care in our universities, but also don't know if I want it to fully get to that level.
So
Yeah, it's
But-
kind of like when you hear about the university building the athletic facility for $100 million, but not funding their science program. You're like, ooh.
Well, the LSU had a thing where I saw a picture. LSU's library is like flooding and like there's leaks everywhere, and they just have buckets out, and then they put it up to a picture of the football locker room. But I also understand that football locker room and it gets you players. And
Yeah.
if you win, it funds
Yeah.
your athletics
Yeah.
department, and it's just
It's a whole
also
business,
like,
right?
yeah,
Like,
the
it's-
college football coach wins more than makes 5 times as much money
There-
as
Steve-
as our Nobel Prize winning scientist.
Exactly.
Like, it's like,
And
back to whatever makes you money.
that stat I threw out that in I think the majority of states, like publicly funded employees, number one is generally a football university coach or a football university basketball coach. But most of the time, it's a football coach.
I was gonna
there's a
say,
reason that NCAA basketball coaches and like NCAA football coaches struggle with that decision of, do I make that jump to the
Right.
NFL? Because it's not
Yeah.
really a jump financially.
yeah.
What do you?
I just got to quickly jump.
Are you
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, no, we just got something.
Oh yeah. yeah.
Uh oh. Okay. Anyway, keep going.
It's an incident outside.
No,
Yeah.
there's a visitor. We've got lots of visitors. It's busy all of a sudden. You guys showed up. It was quiet.
Maybe
This
we had a
announced-
cricket star show up outside.
Hey,
Yeah.
But-
so what is it? What I was gonna say was when I was in Tampa Bay, I think in November, we were in a suite, and Rashad White was there, the running back for the Tampa Bay
Buccaneers?
Buccaneers.
Yeah.
And like I was talking to him, and I was like, most people think about like, 3 years in college is a little too much for players because the risk of injury is very
Right.
high.
Right.
So I mean, like they might not even make it to the NFL. So like so I just want to ask Rashad. I was like, Rashad, like you're playing, right? And I was like, what's your take on college? The guy spent more time talking about his college experience than the NFL. He played for ASU. I'm like, you had a pretty good time. He's like, yeah, I had a pretty good
They
time.
had a great school
Yeah,
to
he had
go
a great
for-
school, great
for
program,
fun,
right?
yeah.
Like, and he's like, you know what? At the end of the day, he's like, Lali, you need 3 years to develop into a bigger guy.
yeah.
Right? He's like, I've heard both sides, and he's like, I do understand that, there's bigger risk for us for injury, but we need those 3 years to mature.
Right.
That was a really interesting take because I've always been on the side of because NFL is such a dangerous sport for the athlete and it's not as much money, like just because of short careers.
And lack of guaranteed contracts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's a pro career in football? It's like 2 years if you're lucky, on average.
Yeah. And Pat, well, a lot of times fans in the NFL, they hear like, oh, this guy signed 10 years, 200 million or whatever. And you're like, yeah, but like even like the Russell Wilson thing that we
Yep.
heard this year about how much that money would be left on the table
Yep.
if they benched him or if they put him on the, when they try to get him, put him on injured reserve this
Yes.
year. Because it's not guaranteed money. Like even Russell Wilson, a guy who has had a storied NFL career, doesn't get like that guaranteed money.
Right.
So that's the thing. I kind of always joke with people at the NFL because I love the NFL. And I know how, with the injuries, with the fact that so many players die when they're in their 40s and 50s or like professional wrestlers. And I kind of say, like, this is like our gladiators. Like, I think that, like, if I would have been in ancient Rome in like 200 AD, I'd like to say that I'd be a better person, that I wouldn't be going to the forum and watching people and doing this, like with the thumbs down,
Waiting for someone to be beheaded.
and waiting for but I would be right in there, and I understand that because there's something about the NFL that hits that primal thing that the ancient Romans did with the gladiators, and
It's violence, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
day, it is violence. That's why we're attracted to the NFL. It's because of the big hits, the plays, the mental toll it takes, even on the QB, to just stand there and try to make a decision with I don't know how many people going after him, right? Like, and that's something that I've thought about when you translate it to hockey, right? So, like, I have an interesting take. I'm gonna put this bone out there. What's one exciting thing about hockey that Americans, I guess Canadians like too, but mostly Americans? We're fading away from the game now.
Physicality, violence,
Violence,
fighting, and
hitting. We're getting fighting is the biggest thing in my opinion. UFC is the only sport where you can literally actually it's the NHL too. It's the only NHL and the UFC are very related because they're the only sport where you can drop the gloves and actually fight, right? And the UFC gets crazy ratings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people love it. People love violence, right? So like, I mean, obviously I'm not a big proponent of having, concussions and all this kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, fights sell. Right? I mean, wouldn't it be fun? I'm going to toss one more idea. Wouldn't it be cool? Like, and I always use this as an example when I'm talking to people. during that rivalry between Calgary and Edmonton, it was Kachuk versus Cassian. Imagine them chirping each other at post game and like getting in, and then you hear like they're gonna fight, and then they just drop the gloves. Right? There's more of a soap opera with that. Whereas like now we're trying to fade it away, but in my opinion, I think that's what gets more eyes on the product.
I don't know if that's because I'll disagree with you on that in the sense that I think, again, within our community of people who are already hockey fans, it's part of that mythology. It's part of what we like. And I'm not talking about physicality. I'm talking about like fighting and the cheap stuff. But I think for a lot of those potential fans, it is a barrier. And I think that they don't cross over because they see a league that has this weird sense. Like I was saying this last week, over this Ryan Hartman thing.
Oh, yeah.
What bothers me about the NHL is this idea that even the referees in the league itself allows the game to police itself. And no other sport does this, right? Like a referee in soccer has no problem pulling a red card at any time if it feels it's a dirty play. We have the same thing in hockey. It's called a match penalty. Mm-hmm. It is when you intend to injure someone, but how often is it called in the NHL?
Very rarely.
Because it comes with the paperwork. It comes with an automatic suspension that goes to the league. They have to, and you're going to have to back a referee on this. But Ryan Hartman hits a guy in the face. It's a match penalty. That is a clear match penalty. The referee sends a message. The enforcement's done by the referee. The referee has the guts to say, but there's this thing in hockey, and this is why we have this culture of enforcement. Referees don't want to influence the game. Every referee in every sport influences the game. If you think that you don't want to influence the game, do not be a referee. There is no given rule that things have to even out. If one team is outplaying the other team is persistently fouling them to stop them from dominating them, well, they should march to the penalty box. And if they hit 6 or 7 penalties in a row, so be it. And
tell that to the Raptors coach.
That's different though. That was a little bit out of control. I know. But hockey, we have this whole even up thing. And we all psychologically think about it, and that begats that culture of revenge that happens in hockey. That is, we talk about it in this kind of glowing way, right? And we have this kind of like the good old days and what have you. But I think, it seems that hockey has always made its bigger connection with fans. When was hockey at its most popular in the United States? In the 1980s?
90s.
In the 80s and 90s. Why? Because the game was exceptionally high scoring back then. Yeah. And to see 100-point scorers was not that big a deal. Every team had one.
It was very tough, too.
Yeah.
It was very tough back in the day.
But the thing was, there was a ton of offense. And I mean, like, North American fans are primed. They don't like watching supposedly defensive kind of struggles and what have you. But I think when the game loosens up a bit and when you have more offense, that helps. I just don't know, and I think that's a question you need to ask of people who kind of are on the periphery of hockey, who will watch it during the playoffs, watch it if their team is, but they don't watch it all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's a question: why aren't you a harder core hockey fan? Why are you not, or only tuning in now and then, or only if it's like an event based kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why aren't you becoming more fans? And that's not really a question for me because I've always loved the game. So.
For new people, new people to the game, just referring back to Rashad White, who I met in Tampa, when I was talking to him, I was explaining hockey to him, and but the thing Rashad kept saying was, anytime two players came together, he was like, smack him, hit him. And this is a NFL football player that is at his first NHL game. That's what he thinks hockey is. And if he doesn't see that, then where's his expectation?
In terms of hitting him, is it just a body check, or is it a punch?
When they would be scrumming in the corners, he spank him, hit him, right? And then even though a normal play, he's like, why doesn't that defense come and hit him? I was like, because he can't get out of position, Rashad, right? I was like, it's not the NFL.
See, and
but that was his. That's what he
There's a
thought.
big
Though.
difference with the NFL because the NFL, they play 16, 17 games a year, and then they get a week off between games. If we want our games to be more physical, sure, but let's lower the number of hockey games to a season to 30.
Well,
and
it's based
let's
on
see what
if
the owners
there's-
think
if
of
there's-
that, and give teams like
I
5,
also-
6 days off between
If
every
they're
game.
doing NFL numbers with lower games and more physicality, you should do it because there's more money involved.
I think
right?
partly that fighting actually is hurting the physicality in hockey because you have to fight after a clean hit nowadays.
Yeah.
And so
that's-
now I'm a player and I'm going out there and I'm like, do I really want to go lay this clean hit here because then I got to go fight? And if we got away from hockey from the
What about-
fighting after clean hits, where if you get hit clean, like I know it's like, oh, McDavid gets hit clean, you got to support your captain. Well, also maybe don't get hit clean. Like don't be in a
What
spot
about-
where you could get hit.
Okay.
If you don't have to fight after a clean hit, dirty hit is a different conversation. But if you don't have to fight after a clean hit, I think you're going to see players start laying body checks more than you are right now. But they're now just in a position in this game where it's you lay a clean hit, now you have to answer for it, and players don't want to answer for it.
What about okay? So another outlandish idea, but you know what? We're on Edmonton Sports Talk Radio. Might as well throw it out there.
That's what this show's all about.
What about regulating the fights, monetizing the fights, so you can bet on them?
But then you'd be obligated to have fights in the game.
Yeah.
But you can
And
do both. You can do both.
I don't know if there would have to be a commission like boxing or MMA, and
Yeah.
there'd be
Like-
rules. Like I don't know how
they
we
would have to be a
cross
set.
into that.
There would have to be a set of rules for it. But imagine like two guys like Cassian and Kachuk hate each other, and they're like, "Screw it, we're gonna go to the league, submit our fight. We're gonna fight one time during this game, and we're gonna get a scorecard, and there's gonna be bets on it."
You know, I'll say this.
Outlandish
That would
idea.
be wild.
It'd be wild.
That would be
You know how many
I'll-
people would be like? The crowd would go nuts.
I'll say
you know how many
this.
bets would come in, and you know how much the others could profit off
And
this. Like, it'd be crazy.
I think we need to though look at, and I think the fans need to look at, and I'm going to say this from going back in the years that I've spoken one-on-one with many enforcers in the league. And I'm going to tell you one thing that if there's a common theme amongst the enforcers I've spoken to, it's how much they hated fighting.
Yeah. Good point.
How much they absolutely hated
because it didn't
and
make money off it.
No, because all they wanted to be was recognized as hockey players.
Yeah.
They wanted that chance to be.
But Steven-
and they hate if you know, I would recommend anyone read Val James. Val James was an enforcer with the Toronto Maple Leafs in the very early 80s, one of the first black players in the NHL. In a time where you had to be a fighter to be a black player in the NHL. Like that's the only way you could make it into the league.
Yeah.
Read how he writes about fighting, about his role. It's sobering. There's a reason. Do you ever wonder why so many enforcers have substance abuse problems, die young, suicidal, mental health problems? And we kind of go, oh, fighting, that's great.
No,
That's not
Well,
as easy as saying CTE.
It is. You understand. When you understand that your role and the only reason that you play in the game
And the lowest paying
is
player
to be
too.
is a sideshow. Is a sideshow. And that's how you hold on. At some point, you reckon with that. And I think that we have this. And I ask, if you like fighting the game, ask yourself. And I'm going to go back to Jennifer Botterill point from a couple of weeks ago. If you think fighting is okay in the game, would you be okay if your 10-year-old kid was a fighter? If your son had to be the fighter on his team, and if you say yes, good, we should have more fighting. If you say no, I don't want that for my kid, then maybe you shouldn't expect it for other people, and maybe you shouldn't expect that in the game. But you have to be willing to say, no, I'm willing to put my kid out there, and I want my kid to scrap.
It depends.
And I want my kid to take that, and I want my kid to take that risk. And I would be like, hell no. Like, I wouldn't want that for my kid.
So, Steven, I completely agree with you with the black hockey players. Like, I don't know how many points George Locke scored in the queue. Like, what was it, like 80 over 85?
He was pretty good. He was
He's
second
really
round
good,
pick, yeah.
right? Like
Every player that got to the NHL
yeah.
at some point was the best
exactly
in hockey.
Robin
in their league or
Bala,
whatever.
right? Like from our community, like he put up numbers in the WHL, and the second he got to the NHL, he was a fighter. That's all he was known for. But what I'm talking about is creating structure and basically compensation for these fighters.
the guys that are willing to do it.
Dude, they should be
Are
compensated
like
for
so
it
like
then,
how we have boxing, we have MMA.
right?
These guys
Like,
want to
they want to
fight.
do it, so they should be compensated. They should do
could be
it.
compensated
right?
in
Whether
a
it be
different way.
profit sharing from betting money, right, through different companies. There should be a way they should be compensated because then it's worth their time to be a fighter. But if they're just doing it to be a sideshow or like some hooligan that's fourth liner that gets paid nothing and gets like 2 minutes, gets sent down to the A with an AHL contract, 2A, like they're not going to do that, right? You got to compensate them, and I think there is a case for for more structure and maybe some more, just understanding like maybe the game does need something that's more regulated to attract more fans. Because I mean, that would be wild to have like a drop the fight and you already have bets on this and you know what's coming, and the whole crowd goes nuts.
That's a outside the box situation, and interesting. Like I would be like, oh my god, what about this, and this? But you're like, wow, okay, you submit your fight card going into the game.
Yeah.
Okay, this was a fun hangout. I really enjoyed it. Steve, Edify magazine. Like, you're working on your book. You've talked about what's coming up though at Edify magazine, and I always get it. Sorry, I'm getting Urban Affairs.
Yeah, Urban Affairs.
That's because that's more focused on the Edmonton.
Yeah, so
and then Edify
that's
magazine.
that, and I do my freelance sports writing and working on my book as well. So like Edify, we've got our best restaurants issue coming up in March. So
I love that one.
That's the one that I get the hate mail for.
I love that episode.
Damn.
So that's where.
Do you get to try them all?
Not all of them, because we have a panel that works on this.
Yeah.
But I'm familiar with most, and it definitely does not help with fitting into things, and that tux fitting will be harder because of it. And then I'm working on a book for Beacon Press out of the United States. So the book is on hockey's difficult relationship with race, and going through like 100 years of history, and then talking to a lot of modern day players. So there's a lot of interviews with recently retired players, with players currently in the game, as well as sort of like the historical aspect, as well about why hockey, despite saying the right things and seeming intentional, still really struggles at being diverse, and why, and some of the real struggles of being that only player of color in the dressing room, like what Lali was talking about, and how difficult that is. And us not seeing it because the majority white media take it for granted, and we think it's great progress when, oh, look, there's like 20 players of color in the NHL. Look how far we've come. And we kind of pat ourselves in the back because we're part of that problem. We're part of that issue because we don't pull ourselves out and see that. So it's been a really interesting book, interesting thing to write about. It's just been really an education for myself. So it's been a whirlwind with that.
I do look forward to that. Apna Hockey, how could people follow what you guys are doing there and seeing the progress and everything you guys do? Is there a way that people could be in touch and
for
follow?
sure. Yeah, you got to toss us a follow on Instagram, APNA, Apna Hockey. That's probably the best way to, check out all our stuff, all the updates. We'll be in Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll be in Toronto for the All-Star game. So that'll be a good time. But yeah, anytime there's South Asian nights, there's going to be one here in Edmonton, Calgary. Learn about our culture, learn about the players in our community, right? I mean, there's some really talented players coming up, and there's some really talented players that are, in the pipeline right now. So it's an exciting time to be South Asians. It's an exciting time to be a hockey fan, right? At the end of the day, we just want to grow our game.
I love that. I love the name. The name is outstanding.
Yeah.
Well, it translates to our.
I know that's what it's just so really cool when you explain the origin of
I
that.
have a couple of texts, if I may.
Quickly,
Yeah.
and then because we'll have the lock shop coming up next with Dusty and Huss, and then at noon you're back with the Oil Stream.
Yes,
you
sir.
and Dusty will recap the Oilers winning their 8th straight hockey game as they beat the Blackhawks yesterday and get set for the Red Wings at Little Caesars
Surveyor
tomorrow.
Brett and I are going to complain and argue back and forth about what is possession and what is offside. Okay, Jasmine texts in and says, Lali does a lot for inclusion in our community. I really appreciate the discussion today as a South Asian myself. And then we had Big Dave, who goes back to Paddle Boat's point. It's okay to just want to watch hockey. I don't think the game necessarily needs the drama, but it needs to grow a personality, get the stick out of its ass. I'm not a huge fan of the Spit and Chicklets guys, but they bring something entertaining to the broadcast, and all they bring is some personality, and the game needs to have more of that. This is a great talk today, fellas, from Big Dave.
It was, gentlemen. I really appreciate you guys taking some time and joining us, coming for the second time and joining us, and hopefully we can have you guys back on again at some time in the week.
sure.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Yeah.
On behalf of Tom, Lali, Steven, Matt, thanks for tuning into EST Hangout. Like I said, Oil Stream coming up at noon with Dusty and Tom. And up next, it is the Lock Shop with Huss and Dusty getting you set with the best bets for tonight. Once again, thanks for tuning into the EST Hangout presented by Mott's Clamato Caesar. Lock Shop coming up in minutes.